Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about the Peoplemover in Disney's Magic Kingdom. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about Disney and anxiety, we talk about sensory issues, and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider at Disney World, like me. Now, if you cannot tell, it is a very wet day here at Magic Kingdom, and I am losing my voice, so I apologize if I sound a little bit scratchy. But the Peoplemover is one of my favorite rides. It's definitely another happy place attraction, just like Living with the Land for me, and in a lot of ways, it's perfect for people with anxiety. So without further ado, let's dive into those details. This Magic Kingdom classic contains darkness, some loud sound design, and a rough ride system. Now, first things first, let's jump into what I think is the most intense part of this attraction, and that is the darkness. Now, this is not the typical dim lighting you'll find in all of the other dark rides across Magic Kingdom or even across Disney World. When I say this is dark, I mean you cannot see your hand 5 inches from your face. This is really one of the only attractions in Walt Disney World that I can think of where you genuinely are in complete darkness. And while this is absolutely not meant to be scary or intense in any way, if you or someone in your party really doesn't like that darkness element, this one can feel pretty extreme compared to the other rides. Now, I think what adds to this intensity is the fact that this happens for an extended period of time. You'll find yourself in this darkness for approximately 3 minutes, which is no small thing. Now, granted, there are a couple of dimly lit scenes within this 3-minute period, but most of this will be in that complete darkness where you cannot see your hand in front of you, you can't see your loved one sitting right next to you or across from you, and it can just be a little bit intimidating even though it's not meant to be scary. Now, when it comes to that sound design, I would say this attraction is pretty typical when it comes to the level of noise. It's just about what you would expect based on other dark rides around the parks, but specifically I did want to mention this Space Mountain segment. So at one point in this attraction, you will find yourself inside the Space Mountain building. Now, this is where, you guessed it, we find that dark segment, and while we're in there, the sound design does change a little bit compared to the rest of the ride. Again, it's nothing really overtly spooky or anything like that, but we do have some Space Mountain themed music. We of course can hear the screams of the other guests enjoying Space Mountain, and while we're not on the ride itself, this part of the ride always bothered me a little bit when I was younger, just because I didn't want anything to do with roller coasters, and going inside of one felt a little bit intimidating. Now, lastly, let's talk about that rough ride system. Now, like with many other attractions, this is just an older ride. Now, luckily, this ride system is very straightforward. You're really just going in a big loop around Tomorrowland, so you don't have many changes of pace or maneuvers where you would notice this rickety rough ride system, but it is definitely worth noting that there are a couple of moments specifically, again, in the Space Mountain segment, where you will feel your car jerk a little bit. It really does just feel like a quick little bump or jolt as you go through this section. It's not a drop, it's not a crazy turn like on a roller coaster or anything like that, but it's very unexpected, especially since you cannot see anything around you in complete darkness. So while this little maneuver is not intense really by any means, I would definitely call it jarring, and if you're not expecting it, it might just surprise you. Now let's talk about those ride vehicles. Now what we have here is a 5-car train seating 4 guests per car in 2 rows that are facing each other. Now, this is an interesting little element to this ride vehicle because you can be seated either going forward or backwards. So if you would like to experience the Peoplemover ride going backwards, you have the power to just sit facing that direction, and likewise, if you don't want to go backwards, you can sit facing forwards. This really does shake up the experience just a little bit on an otherwise very mild attraction. I wouldn't necessarily say that sitting facing backwards is any more intense or scary than facing forward, forwards, it's just a little bit of a different vibe. Now, in addition to this, we have no ride restraints to speak of, so if that is something that concerns you, you won't have any lap bar or seat belts to worry about. Now, finally, let's talk about that ride duration. Now, the Peoplemover actually clocks in at a whopping 10 minutes, approximately. And I say approximately because this ride is prone to frequent breakdowns. Now, you are usually not stopped for very long, but I cannot remember the last time I hopped on the Peoplemover and didn't have a slight delay. And before we move on, I did want to touch on the potential for claustrophobia here. So on top of this long ride duration, there are a few enclosed spaces along the way. Now, these really are completely limited to the indoor section, like the Space Mountain segment I was talking about before, and these areas do tend to feel a little stuffy, and because we're prone to breakdowns, like I said, there is definitely the potential of being stuck in the dark in an enclosed space for just a little while. Now, the ride system itself does not feel claustrophobic to me. Like I said, there are no restraints of any kind. There's really plenty of room in the car itself, but if you don't particularly like tunnels and some of these other elements that we've talked about might be a little intense for you, I would just keep it in mind when it comes to claustrophobia. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually go hop in line. It doesn't look too bad. I think the rain scared a lot of people away, so let's go ride this together. You'll find the entrance to this attraction in the Tomorrowland section of Magic Kingdom. Now, this is another very straightforward queue. The entirety of it takes place outside, and really all that happens is once you walk into the queue, you will just wind back and forth outside of the loading station. Most of this line is downstairs, and historically, it doesn't usually have too long of a wait. Now, after winding back and forth in this area for a while, you will come across your first cast member who will send you up this ramp. Now, typically this ramp is in motion. It's kind of like an escalator, but in ramp form, and it will just send you up to the second floor where you'll find the loading station. Now, on this particular day when I was filming, the ramp was not working, so just keep that in mind. This ramp can be down from time to time. Now, once you reach the second floor, you will find the loading station right in front of you. You'll be able to see the ride vehicles going by, so this is a great opportunity to look and see if this is something that you can handle, and before long you'll find yourself at your second cast member who will send you onto the ride vehicle itself. Now, this is another Omnimover attraction, very similar to the Haunted Mansion or Journey of the Little Mermaid, where the ride vehicles really don't stop unless there is a reason to for accessibility concerns or transporting a guest. So because of this, you will step onto a moving belt and then hop into the ride vehicle from there. Of course, this can feel a little bit intimidating if you don't really have your sea legs like myself. Now, even though we have a 10-minute duration for this attraction, it is a very straightforward experience. You will set off and get to see Tomorrowland from a very beautiful perspective. I always love looking down and seeing all the guests, seeing everybody milling around Tomorrowland. Now, for me personally, I didn't have any issues with feeling like I was too far up or having a fear of heights or anything like that. You're not any further off the ground than you are on, say, the monorail, and the track feels very secure and really not precarious at all, at least in my opinion. So after making your way around Tomorrowland, you will go through a few dark indoor segments. Now, one of these is the Space Mountain segment that we have been talking about, and in here, of course, you will find that complete darkness. You'll find that little bumpy maneuver and maybe a little bit of elevated sound design. Now, aside from this is a very, very relaxing, chill, not anxiety-inducing ride at all. And this is why I say that it could be a great ride for people with anxiety. It just totally depends on your triggers. For me personally, I adore the Peoplemover, and it's a very relaxing ride to me because the darkness and some of these other elements don't bother me. However, of course, listen to your gut when it comes to you and your party and whether or not this is something you can handle. Now, after this quick journey around Tomorrowland with a very upbeat, fun voiceover, you will find yourself back at the loading station. And of course, exiting this attraction is even more straightforward than getting on. All you do is take the ramp downstairs and you'll find yourself back in the middle of Tomorrowland. And there we have it. What do you think about the Peoplemover? Is this a happy place for you, or is it a skip? Don't forget to let me know in the comments. I love interacting with you guys and hearing your thoughts on every single ride. Now, as always, if you liked this ride review and would like to see more like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.